Well, 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 it is another day in paradise. Welcome to the PrepperCon Radio Hour. As always,
paradise there, Scott.
It's awfully cold in paradise. You know, it's been freezing for what? Going on 7 days? We've had average temperatures below freezing.
Yeah, it's that hard winter we've been expecting for about 3 years is now.
There's one particular sink I have to keep running when it gets down to single digits.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Oh, that's not fun.
Yeah, behind the garage, no basement underneath it, you know, no extra cold out there. Only one vent, kind of far away, so in order to keep the pipes from freezing out, we gotta keep the water running a little bit or stick a heater in there or something.
Oh, man. Well, my two favorite inventions, really, in the history of the world, you know, everyone's going to argue.
Fire in the wheel.
Central heating and central air.
Running water.
I love those things. We got a fun day for you guys today. So as always, this is PrepperCon Radio. We're on AM 630. That's K-talkradio. We're actually just about to relaunch and rebrand ourselves. K-talk.com right now, but just keep your eyes and ears open. That's going to be changing in the next few weeks. I won't give you any spoilers. We'll wait. I won't tell you anything about Star Wars either. No spoilers there.
But I guess part of it was Joe Carey, who came on yesterday. His first show was yesterday, right?
Yeah, he had an awesome show. They're actually, if you're listening to the top of the hour, they were talking about the case where the kid broke his parole and then fled to Mexico.
His affluenza defense.
Yeah, his affluenza defense. They actually were talking about that last night. It was really awesome. Joe's a lawyer by trade, by background, by career. So he has the right insight to be able to comment and give a good commentary on this. But the callers were great. He did a great job. So shout out to him. He did awesome. He'll be going full time on his show starting next week, every day, Monday through Friday, and I believe he's 4 to 6.
Yeah.
So
cool.
That'll be fun to tune in. And for those who don't know who he was and is, he's been huge with Mercury One, The Blaze, for years, helping out over there. It's kind of fun to have him have his own show.
Absolutely.
Show off his amazing team. I mean, he just brings in a good group. Whatever he does, always turns out awesome. So, good job for him last night. We're excited to have him back, and we'll try to get him on PrepperCon Radio.
Absolutely. Yeah,
that'd be fun.
That would be a lot of fun.
Today in studio, we actually have Jeff Kirkham with ReadyMan.
Hey.
Once again.
He's kind of become our local hero. We get him in every once in a while. He's a regular.
And will continue to be if it's up to me. And I'm watching my red spike as I speak loudly here.
Yeah, it's good to be here. Thanks for having us out. You know, anything that we can do with ReadyMan to help out PrepperCon and Prepared Guy. I mean, we're here, and then you know, and also it's a good excuse to get me out of bed in the morning so that I can get my day up and running. So
isn't that what Black Rifle Coffee's for?
It is, and it seems like every time that I come here, I've been out of my BRCC, and I end up fervently looking for some place to stop along the way and can't find it, and then show up empty-handed.
With this rebranding, we need to, I guess, ask Kristen to get a coffee maker in here, right?
Yep. There you go.
There you go. So we can represent.
Oh man, that's awesome. Well, we're going to talk, right in your wheelhouse today. We're going to talk about cold winter, what happens during the winter, and what you need to be better prepared for it. I mean, winter survival, let's just be honest, it sucks.
It does.
But to live and to live better than you were living is always good. To die in miserable conditions doesn't sound like fun. I've never done it, and I don't want to try it. But
never had frostbite. Maybe you have
never had frostbite.
Yes. Yep. Sucks.
Oh. We're gonna have some fun stories today. I can already tell. So let's jump a little back in history for you. You've done a lot with cold weather survival. Amazing training. What is the craziest thing that you learned or did, you know, in your military career, getting your
The craziest or the suckiest?
Let's go suckiest.
Isn't that the same?
You know, let's see. There's probably a few, but I think probably you know, the thing, probably one of the suckiest things, I guess, was when before you go to combat dive school, I was a diver in SF and Special Forces, and you know, I was on a dive team, and really you quickly figure out, you make a little extra pay for being a combat diver, and everybody's like, oh, wow, that's great, you make a few extra $100 a month, and then once you're a diver, you quickly realize it's because you're doing a whole bunch of extra work. And then to add insult to injury, I was in what was called the cold weather battalion, which meant that we were diving in cold water, and it really cemented in my head that it was like, boy, let's leave this stuff to the SEALs, because this really stinks. But probably the worst time was, you know, there are 3 or 4 there, but I did pre-scuba. So before you can go to scuba school, you have to go to pre-scuba or pre-combat dive school, and when you go there, it's basically it's like hazing. It's not hazing in the sense of like a fraternity. It's just they wear you out straight for about 2 weeks, and like I had about 1 or 2 near drownings a week, and nothing exhausts you like thinking you're going to die and trying to do the cat scratch fever to try and get to the top of the pool because you're drowning. But and I did it over my Christmas vacation. So
happy holidays!
Happy holidays. So it was the Puget Sound in January with snow on the ground, diving up, and you know it doesn't get real cold in Washington, but the seawater from Puget Sound gets nice and cold, and when there's snow on the ground after you get out of the water, in doing that, you know, 2 dives a day, or they weren't dives, they were surface swims, and because you're not diving yet at that point. So that probably ranks right up there as like probably one of the suckiest times in winter training.
Wow. You know, my background, Boy Scouts, Klondike Derbies, the Polar Plunge, that was probably the worst.
Sound like a picnic
Polar
to me.
Plunge,
The Polar
yep.
Plunge, but
I'm
that's
part of
nothing
Polar
like the
Club
Puget Sound. Like, oh, holy crap.
Yeah, the Polar Plunge at Camp Lowell was, I mean, I think that was 10 seconds or something back then, but you were out and you were done. And
I grew up in Colorado, so we went to Camp Chris Dobbins, and we had to jump into the lake, and we didn't have to stay in very long. So everyone's like on the edge of the dock, and they're jumping in on one side, and they're climbing out of the other side. It's pretty much as fast as their head hits the water. They're climbing out. It's miserable. And that's the challenge. I think a lot of people think, okay, when the winter hits, you know, what do I need to do to be better prepared, to be prepared to survive? And I think one of the things to think about is the scenarios you could face.
mm-hmm.
But think about how miserable it'll be if you're not prepared.
Yep.
You know, so
it's all preparation. You know, you can shoot and miss a little bit when it's warm outside, but in the cold, there's so little room for error for screwing up that you know, and even if you do everything right, you're still there's still an element of misery. You know, there's still an element of like, man, this really kind of stinks. That's going on there, and so and you're just limiting that by your planning. And so, you know, you get cold, and then you get wet and cold, and then on top of that you have the exhaustion factor because you're constantly cold and shivering and you're tense while you're out there. It's interesting, I just saw a slideshow that a guy put together, and it was all of the bodies that are still left up on Mount Everest,
yeah, I've seen
of these climbers that had died, and the majority of them, they say, die from exhaustion and exposure. So they get so tired. Now, obviously, there's a lack of oxygen that's going on because of the altitude.
But most of them carry oxygen.
But most of them are carrying oxygen, and not all of them. But you know, it's not falls that are killing people. They just reach the end of their rope. They sit down to to get a rest, and
that's it.
And that's it. They fall asleep. And really, that exemplifies the cold of, you know, you're burning so many more calories in the cold and you don't even know it, just standing there because your body's tense. You're trying to generate that metabolic heat from your core to stay warm. Your hands are cold, your feet are cold. Then you throw some water, you know, on top of that in the form of wet snow or slush or perspiration. And really, that's really what happens with a killer. And then your body's trying to constantly stay warm.
And if you don't understand what kind of cold that is, that's 60 below zero cold plus wind chill.
Plus wind chill, yeah. And really, it just happens faster at that altitude. But if you look at even if you walked outside right now and you were working hard because you got lost and you're tromping around and you start to get a little bit of that that fear factor going in the pit of your stomach with the butterflies,
Yep.
and then all of a sudden the adrenaline's kicking up. We're working a little bit harder. We start to sweat. We're not wearing the proper clothing that we should be. You know, we're, you know, cotton's super comfortable, but then the cotton's holding all that moisture in, that's holding that water against our body, which is the convections. It's bleeding off all the heat from our body, and then all of a sudden, before you know it, you're hypothermic. You sit down to get a rest, and then you're gone.
You know, it's interesting. There's a story in the news. Fox News covered it just the other day. Did you guys hear the story about the two kids hunting, and one of them got lost up in?
Yeah, up in Weber County.
Yeah, he walked. I mean,
All night long.
all night long. The thing that saved him, which is interesting in the article, the thing that saved him was that he was wearing his winter hunting gear, which was extra insulation.
Mm-hmm.
He had multiple layers on. He had wool. But the thing that could have killed him was the fact that he just was wandering. He wasn't knowing where he was going, and eventually his cell phone died, but he at least told everyone where he's going to be. They ended up finding him, or almost finding him, when they found, with the helicopter using infrared, they found his sled that he'd been pulling, and it had all the gear, and it had a heat signature still. But had he stayed with that, he'd been found that first night. Instead, he was found the following morning when he found a phone line, a hard line, and called in and said, "Hey, somebody come get me." But at that point, he was delirious. I mean, and
and that's the
all night
hallmark of hypothermia. We start to lose our higher thought process.
Mm-hmm.
About a year ago, with one of our ReadyMan challenges, we had one of our folks that had was tracking a blood trail on an elk, and we ended up having to go out there and pick him up. We had snowmobiles with us, and at the time when we picked him up, you know, and you're talking a guy that'd been trained in the, you know, he'd former SEAL, and he'd been trained in winter warfare and whatnot, and it was really interesting and a good reminder to me of when we picked him up, little slips of the higher thought process were absent, where he's making little simple mistakes, kept losing his gloves. You know, it's interesting, a lot of people that freeze to death, they say, yeah, they find them and they don't have their gloves on.
Coats off.
Coats off. Or
down to their t-shirt or whatever.
And it was interesting to see that, because he had taken his gloves off to do some type of activity with his hands, so he had the dexterity, and then he lost his glove.
Oh,
and then
wow.
then he's looking for his other glove, and then he'd find it, he'd put it on, and then he'd take the other glove off to help put on the other glove, because, you know, you were starting to lose the dexterity in our hands, and then he'd lose the other glove. And I sat there and watched him for about 5 minutes lose his gloves about 3 or 4 times, you know, one after the other, until finally it was like, okay, put your gloves on, get on the sled, let's
taking
go.
care of
Yeah.
you. You're coming with us.
absolutely.
Yeah, I guess my comment is, if anyone really wants to understand what this type of cold that we're talking about, like on Everest, go and read Jack London's short story, To Build a Fire. It'll only take you a few minutes to read it. It's in the situation, it's in up in the Arctic, up in Alaska, in the Yukon, and he's in 75 degrees below zero. And just read it, and it will shock you and make you want to be prepared for cold weather, I tell you that.
Well, the honest truth is, it doesn't take much cold to affect a person.
Yep.
I mean, I watched a show called Alone. It's a game show. It's a survival game show. They drop 10 guys off in the woods, and they put them all in different areas, so they're all completely alone. They're filming their own stuff. But it was showing that it was like 50 degrees, but because of the rain, they're all freezing.
Yep.
And subject to exposure. I mean, there's a lot of problems at that point. So, you know, number one, if you're going to be out, have a shelter solution with you. And shelters your clothing as well, but it can also be like your car. If you have a car accident, you're on the side of the road, if you're safe to be where you are, stay where you are. Stay in the car, especially in inclement weather, because you're going to die faster from being out and being exposed than you are sitting in your car.
3 hours.
Yeah. I mean, explain that rule real quick.
The rule of threes for survival: 3 hours being out of exposure, 3 days without water, 3 weeks without food, 3 minutes without air.
Yeah. So we're running into a hard break right now. We had a caller that called in. We hope you call back. Let's pick you up as soon as we get back from the commercial break. Thanks for listening to K-Talk. That's AM 630 Radio, k-talk.com. All right, welcome back. We appreciate you being here with us. You are listening to the PrepperCon radio show on K-Talk. You can follow us on Facebook, K-Talk Radio. You can follow us on Twitter at KTKK, and you can follow us on Instagram at K-Talk Utah. So we got a caller, Rob. Let's bring him on the line. Hey, Rob, are you there?
Good morning.
Good morning. How you doing?
I'm doing good. Happy New Year.
Hey, Happy New Year. We're just a couple of days away from a whole new, fresh set of 365s.
Hard to believe.
I thought we weren't going to talk about that, Scott.
Well, we're not going to talk about resolutions. But, Rob, hey, thanks for calling in. What have you got for us today?
Well, you guys are talking about being out in the elements and stuff, and, I do a lot of hunting, and, I find myself out there sometimes. And a real helpful tip here, for protein, I've been finding out that it's really easy to pack along with you, too, is whiting the fish, canned in oil.
Say that. You're coming through a little quiet. You said packing protein?
Yeah, protein for you, to get you out of those, when your body gets depleted of energy,
Okay.
Can you hear me clearly?
Yeah, I can hear you now. You got a little quiet there. So you're packing your protein. Did you say fish?
Yeah, whiting in the can. Canned whiting.
Oh yeah, whiting. Yeah, there you go. Whiting tuna, whiting salmon.
Nothing like kippered snacks when you're out. I mean, it doesn't matter if it's cold or if it's hot. Kippered snacks just seem to be delicious after a long day of moving around, and it's also nice too because my wife won't let me eat them at home.
And I'm just saying, you can really feel, you can feel the energy. I mean, even being out when you're out in the field, and they're easy to carry because they're small. I mean, and they pack a nice punch to get you, the rest of the way out of there.
Absolutely. I think one of the things a lot of people forget about when they are going out, because we're in such an on-demand society, everything is, I want to watch a movie, let me download it. I want to see what's on the web, let me get it on my phone. I want to get some food, I'll hit a drive-through. But it's so smart to have something with you on your person, in your car, just in case. Because you never know what's going to happen. So I really appreciate that. What else, as a hunter, what else do you do to stay warm?
I like wool myself. Wool clothing is like, it's like no other. I mean, compared to any of the other fabrics that are out there on the market, the cold just doesn't penetrate it. You can go out there in single digits or 0 degrees, and you've got a big heavy wool coat on. That cold's just not getting to you.
Yeah, that's a great point, and I would love to talk more about fabrics and layering. Very important in the winters is layering and having the right fabrics, like Jeff said.
One more thing, I never heard you guys mention, something that I just came to my mind here about a month ago. If you got a bug out bag or a backpacking bag, you know how important it is to be able to get food in case something does happen to you and you're stuck out there. I've been finding, you ever see those rat traps? They're not the mice traps, but the big ones.
Yeah.
They're about 6 inches long by about 3 inches wide.
Very scary.
Okay, yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Have one of them in your backpack.
But catch yourself a rodent and
Catch some squirrels and rabbits to eat. Or not rabbits, I'm jumping up a size there. Rats.
Well, you might catch a squirrel, a small red squirrel.
That's true.
After that, leave one of those out overnight, and you never know what he's going to get. If you're starving, a bird, even.
get yourself some protein. That's a great
Yeah,
idea.
anything you can get to keep that
Blood
pumping.
At PrepperCon, I met a guy. He was he'll have to forgive me. He'll probably go, "Hey, that was me that gave you that advice." But I met this guy at PrepperCon who taught survival classes, and I mentioned to him, I was like, "Hey, what's the one thing that?" Or I asked him, I said, "Hey, what's the one thing that you take out with you that you recommend?" And he said, "Peanut butter." I was like, "Peanut butter, really? Why?" And he's like, "Well,
Dan.
it's great caloric value, and the other thing is just exactly what you're talking about. You can attract and trap anything in the forest with a little bit of peanut butter." So
I caught a mouse this morning on peanut butter.
One more quick idea: you get a broadhead, an arrow broadhead, and if you take that broadhead and you stick it in a little piece of wood so it's stable, and then you rub chicken or beef bouillon cube on the blade. What happens is the animals come at night to sniff the salt, and they cut their tongue, and it does sometimes make them bleed to death. You get the right cut on it.
It's interesting.
Follow the tracks of blood. Anyway, take it easy, guys. Happy New Year.
Hey, Happy New Year. Thanks for calling in. That's awesome. I think it would take quite a while, depending on the animal and the severity of the cut on the tongue, but it would be a good opportunity to practice your tracking skills too.
Yes.
That's
So
true.
I'm pretty sure that anything that cuts its tongue right there is not going to hang out and keep eating bouillon. But I think those are some great tips. Layering is so very important, especially in winter. I mean, I see a lot of friends, especially in the industry that I'm in real estate. They'll have one big coat,
Yep.
and then they take off the coat and it's a t-shirt.
Yep.
And I'm like, where's your layers? What are you going to do as the weather changes? And they're like, oh, I'm fine. I've got this big warm coat. Well, then they start sweating. And then they can't get warm again because they just have that one layer and it's not wicking away the water.
It's cotton.
They're wearing
layer.
cotton. So you guys are more
We had a
experts.
system in the Army. It was called the spear system. You know, maybe I'm dating myself to some of you guys that are in the mill still, but the spear system was set up where, like, your first layer was a thin layer. It was like silk.
Right.
It wasn't like actual silk, but it was silk.
Very thin.
And then you had another layer of a really thin fleece, and then you had another layer, and so it was this whole layering system that they put together all the way out to what we called the bear suit, where it was real thick polypropylene. And in this system, if you had the whole thing on with the Gore-Tex, you kind of looked like that kid in the Christmas story.
Ralphie's little brother.
Exactly. But you could literally jump in a snowdrift and go to sleep, and you were
Cover
fine
yourself up with
because
snow and you're good.
and you were good to go. So, but I mean, that's probably the nth degree of layering that you can do. But it certainly works that once you get up and you start working, you shed some of those outer layers. The idea being, don't start. Only work to the point that you start to sweat, then shed a layer so you can cool off. You don't want to have to deal with that wet afterwards, because that'll start the convection and bleeding away your heat.
That's the key to the layering system is be able to shed a layer. So in the outdoor community, compared to military, of course you call it base layer, mid layer, maybe mid layer 1 or 2, and then your outer shell, your outer layer, which is waterproof, windproof, Gore-Tex. I prefer Gore-Tex, I know you do too. So your first layer, I prefer a nice thin, like a polypropylene, or a Patagonia Capoline, or North Face Thermax. There's a lot of different brands out there. I say even just go with the least expensive polypropylene. It'll wick properly. It'll help keep you dry. And I can personally attest to how miserable you are when you're wet, when you sweat, you get up to altitude where the wind's blowing, it's cold. It is brutal. You need to have on that wicking layer. And then have 2 mid layers. One that you can shed, like you say, when you're hiking, you get a little too hot, you shed that layer, put your shell back on, and you keep going. But you can regulate your temperature that way, so that you're not sweating. If you sweat on Everest, you're dead.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think the other thing is be cognizant of where you're going and what you're doing, but also have extra surplus, extra supplies with you. Like, it's so easy to have an extra wool blanket in your car. Your car, truck, throw an extra blanket in there. Throw those cheap Mylar blankets in there because that'll reflect your heat back. What I like to do is wrap up in wool and then throw the Mylar blanket around it. And it gives me a lot more heat. I'm actually going to be doing a video on this the next few weeks. I'm gonna sleep in my truck overnight, just on the side of the road somewhere, and just see how well just those 2 systems will do.
See how long your gas tank keeps drawing with your heater blazing.
Engine off. Good point. Engine will be off. So
I'll tell you another thing too that's kind of overlooked is those hand warmers that you can get at Costco. I'll tell you what, I've experimented a lot with those hand warmers, putting them next to the artery or the pulse points in your hands and in your feet, and it is a tremendous, for the size that they are, for the weight that they are, they're very small, they're very compact, they don't weigh hardly anything, but the heat that they can provide, I mean, it's not going to be like a bonfire that you're going to be able to dance around in your swimsuit. But keeping your hands and feet, there's, really the indicator of when you're starting to go down is when your hands and feet start getting cold, because you're not able to regulate your temperature. And being able to, and it's also one of those things that hampers your ability to walk, hampers your ability to do work, because your hands are starting to turn into clubs, you're losing that dexterity. And keeping those little hand warmers, I'll tell you, just shoving those into the bottom of your gloves or your socks, next to where the arteries are running into those, it's a tremendous thing, and really it doesn't cost you very much. It's easy to throw those things in your car and forget about them until you need them.
Well, the nice thing is they're good for about 3 years, right?
Yeah, they
so
last
you throw it in your
forever.
car, forget about it, check on your car. I rotate my stuff depending. I rotate most of my stuff every 6 months, my bug out bags, right? I also check my car, rotate anything in there that I need to. First aid kit stuff, some of that expires, but it's good to double check those. But man, those things come in so handy. I've got a pack in my car now, and I use the foot ones because I can throw it in the front of my shoe, and it is rounded on one end.
Oh, yeah.
But then it works great in your, because I can get it strapped into my sleeve, so it's right on my wrist or right in the side in the palm, and it's not so big and bulky, but it takes up too much room. And those are great resources, and a lot of people kind of forget that unless they're avid skiers and snowboarders. I mean, riding the lifts, you get freezing, you know, if you're not prepared. But I see all these little snowboarders and skiers, and they've all got, you know, a pocket full of those ready to go, and they've already got ones in their gloves. I mean, it's just a smart way.
I was out in Virginia several years back, and I was teaching a firearms class, and it was raining and sleeting, so it was just a miserable day. And it was one of these, you know, this is, you know, Jeff's higher thought process of, hey, I'm going to put on next to nothing for the elements and see if these hand warper, because I was working on experimenting with keeping the hands warm and the feet warm, which is some cutting edge research that's going on as far as your body's ability to moderate its temperature through your hands and your feet. So I was like, okay, I'm going to try this out. And so I stood out in the sleet and the rain running a range with Chuck Taylors on and a light jacket. And basically I just ran, you know, those things next to those heaters next to the pulse points. And I was actually, I wasn't cozy warm, but I wasn't absolutely miserable either. And I was really impressed. I was like, well, there really is something to this. Now, I'm not recommending that somebody go out into the woods in Chuck Taylors and a t-shirt and think that they can keep their hands and feet warm and not die, but it certainly adds to, you know, your tool chest of things that you can do.
Absolutely. I think survivability, making it a little less painful, making it a little more comfortable is always the key. If you're just trying to survive, that's no fun. You want to make sure that you're in at least a better condition than you would have been without the gear, whatever you've got. And that's why with PrepperCon, one of our things is thrive. You want as quality a life as possible, and that's why we are huge proponents of being prepared, helping the neighborhood, helping the community be prepared, helping people think, okay, I'm going on a long road trip, what are some things that I should put in my car? I'm going on a trip to the store, what should be in my car always?
How can I be ready?
How can I be ready? You know, that's
Mr. ReadyMan.
It's just taking a few extra minutes out of your week to improve whatever situation you may come across. And that's something that a lot of people just forget. I mean, we've got a guest coming on in the next few weeks. His name is Chris. He is a world record holding hand cyclist. Wow. He's a quadriplegic. He has to take extra time for everything that he does. You know, and when he broke the world record, he was, and I don't want to spoil too much because he'll be on it, I think, next week, but he rode from Idaho Falls to Huntington Beach, went through some severe weather. As a quadriplegic on a hand cycle, you have to wear special gloves just to be able to crank the handle because he doesn't have the dexterity and the grip strength. And so he had to rig up his own solution to keep his hands semi-warm and dry. So we'll have him talk about that. I think that's going to be a fun topic next week. But
well, you know, and I think planning is one of those things. You ask any mom out there, you know, now that I'm a father and stuff, and it's like, it's an amazing amount of planning that has to take place of when you're taking your 2-year-old out. It's like, do you have the diaper bag? Do you have the bottle? Do you have the, you know, the diaper rash cream? Do you have the treats that are in there in case when they get hungry? Okay, now it's cold outside. Do they have a jacket? Do they have a hat? And, you know, if you extend that just a little bit, I mean, in a lot of cases, especially moms that are out there, they're already doing it. It's just taking that just a, you know, a half step further and really secure your you know, your safety in case, you know, worst case, it starts snowing like it is right now and you go off the road and you're stuck there.
yeah.
Especially when you have kids, they rely on you.
Absolutely.
You may have all this stuff for your kids, but you don't have stuff for yourself, then what are they going to do?
You know, it's funny, I find this oftentimes, the wife will pack the bag, the dad will take the kids, and the kids will be more prepared than the dad is because the mom.
Yes.
Right? And I'm guilty of that. My wife would pack the bags. We used to have a couple foster girls, and they were always better prepared. And I'm a prepper. I should have been better prepared. But no matter how well prepared I am, I've got my 96-hour kit. There's at least 6 days worth of stuff in those bags. Like, it's amazing what a mom can shove in a bag for a kid. You know, and it's just taking that a little extra time to be cognizant of where you're going, what you're doing, how long you'll be gone, and what you could encounter on the way. And so, with that point, let's get some callers coming in. What are things that you're doing for your winter preparedness? Maybe some tips, some tricks that you've incorporated in your stuff. The number to call in, it's 801-254-5855. This is AM 630 K-Talk Radio. Let's get some callers in here. Tell us, what are some tricks you do? You know, one of my buddies, it's funny, we just took a call from a guy named Rob. One of my other buddies, his name is Bob, so I'm going to try to not confuse it. He's a big hunter, and he's always telling me I have to have nylons with me. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, my legs are fine, I don't need to look pretty, I'm wearing jeans. But the reality is those hold a lot of heat.
Mm-hmm. That's an old skier trick.
Yeah. Yep. And I guess hunters have been using it for a long time as well. Mm-hmm. You know, I don't fully know the whole science about it, but it works really well. I've used it skiing, and my legs are nice and toasty.
Well, and I think too, like a lot of folks, as soon as you start talking about layers and whatnot, people immediately think is some of these higher end stores that are, you know, they're like, man, it's a lot of money, it's kind of expensive. The reality is, you can buy pretty much everything you need. With ReadyMan, one of the challenges that we're getting ready to do is we're gonna give a guy $100, and it's like, okay, you have $100 and you can go into Walmart and or some such store like Walmart, and it's like, with that $100, can you buy enough supplies that you can stay overnight and survive out in the wilderness? And in tinkering around with that and doing our research, you know, really it is possible if you're smart and you know what to look for, you do a little bit of research. You know, it's not cost prohibitive to get the right materials and just to have them on standby. Now, they may not be the latest and greatest thing from Patagonia, but you throw it in your vehicle and you'll be at least safe.
Yeah, it'll work.
You'll be a lot better off
than without.
You know, hey, we're coming into another break. Thanks for tuning in. Stay with us. We'll be back in about 2 minutes. Hey, welcome back to PrepperCon Radio. I am your host, Scott. I've got Shane in house as usual, the prepared guy.
Here.
And then we've got Jeff Kirkham over at ReadyMan. Tell us a little bit about what you guys have coming up. I think it's pretty exciting.
Yeah, so at ReadyMan, for those of you that don't know, we're an online training content. So we have members that pay a monthly fee, and then you can get in and you can learn skills. And then many of those, which are part of what we call the ReadyMan Challenge, are entertaining training. We like to call entertainment. I'm not sure who coined that phrase.
That's pretty cool.
I'll say I did, but no, it's probably my business partner Evan. But he's a little bit better at stuff like that. But and so the ReadyMan Challenge is essentially reality series meets training, and it's pretty cool stuff, and it's entertaining. So you're entertained while you're watching it. Not all the videos are that. We've got a bunch of the instructional stuff that's on there as well. And then along with the ReadyMan membership, about every month we run what's called live trainings, where people come in and we go over skills. So February 6th and 7th, we have what we call the Home Defense and Tactics that's coming up. We'll be teaching that here in Salt Lake. If you're a ReadyMan member, it's a huge discount on there. Typically the class is about $1,000. And then if you're a ReadyMan member, you get a screaming deal where you can come in and attend the training, and you'll get to listen to my wonderful voice while during the training. I'm the trainer. So we take a lot of the tactics, many of the tactics that we learned and did overseas with Special Forces, and then we've applied those to home defense and what to do when you wake up in the middle of the night because something crashed in the kitchen or something like that. And so we're going to be doing that the 6th and the 7th. There's still some slots. We just announced this literally less than 24 hours ago. So there's still some slots. People can sign up. They can at info@readyman.com or info@readymanteam.com. Either of those two, or you can go to readymanstore.com and you can sign up there as well.
Do you guys ever do any active shooter trainings? Like, you know, one of the big concerns now, I mean, everyone saw what happened in San Bernardino, but do you guys ever do any corporate trainings like that? Or
We do. We're gearing up for those corporate trainings now. We've done a couple already, and with great success. And actually, some of the folks that have already signed up for this home defense and tactics, or some of our folks that were from the corporate trainings as well. I guess they liked what I was teaching, and so yes, we've done that as well.
So for anyone who's in a corporate environment, who's an employee or employer, I mean, what does it focus on?
You can just send an email, and really what we do is, because there's so many different buildings that are out there and so many different layers of what's happening with the corporations, that you can call us, and if it's something where we're going to travel to you guys, then we'll develop a course specifically for you. So right now we're putting together a course. There's a local company where they do a lot of traveling overseas, so they're not necessarily, they actually very secure building and whatnot, not a huge chance of an active shooter, but they're more worried about the kidnap avoidance. One of the other courses that we teach is a kidnap avoidance hostage escape course, and so they're more interested in that, to see if they're being followed by potential thugs when they're overseas, and what to look for and whatnot.
Now, do I have to have any advanced training, or can I be a straight-up beginner coming to any of your courses?
No, the majority of these classes that we put together, unless we announce it as an advanced class with prerequisites, but the vast majority of them are designed for, you can show up and literally not know anything,
awesome.
and you'll leave with skills all the way up to, we've had some quite advanced folks that have shown up to the classes, and they're either re-going over skills that may have gotten a little bit rusty, but in many cases they were seeing stuff that they didn't know, because I think that our information is probably more current and up to date than many, I won't say all, that are out there, but many that are out there, just simply because having done this for so many years, essentially for about a decade overseas, and teaching it, so doing it and then advising it and teaching it overseas to local indige, you see all the mistakes, and you quickly see what works and what doesn't work, and so it's really helped us thin slice it down to, hey, these are the bare bones fundamentals that you need to know, and
nice.
And then you can go from advanced from there.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much. I'm excited to hear more about that, and we're going to have you on again, over and over again. For those listening in, this is Jeff. He's with ReadyMan, ReadyMan.com or ReadyManTeam.com, right?
ReadyMan.com.
ReadyMan.com.
Or ReadyManStore.com.
There you go. If you go to the ReadyManStore.com, you can get the cool hostage escape cards and all the different survival tools. You have first aid stuff there as well, right?
Yep, we're spinning up the first aid stuff. So my RATS Tourniquet is on there, the Rapid Application Tourniquet System. I'm the inventor of that. So that's ReadyMan sells that, and we're actually, because medical is one of those things that's so often overlooked by folks. They go to the range, we were just talking about folks at the range blasting, and so they're up to par on their shooting skills, but it's you get into a gunfight, there's a good chance somebody's going to get a hole in them, and you need that second half of the gunfighting skills of saying, hey, I've got to be able to render aid to anybody that may have received a round.
Awesome. Looks like we've got a caller. Let's go ahead and take that caller. Hey, you're on live with K-Talk. What's your name?
Dale.
Neil?
Dale.
Dale. Hey, there you go. What have you got for us today, Dale?
I had a question on whether it's better to be closed or unclosed using body heat inside the together sleeping bag.
Okay, good question.
So are you talking just in general, or are you talking a hypothermic situation?
Well, it's an emergency. My wife's got 19-year-old younger sisters that are rather at that stage where they're not too inhibited, so that makes a fun, serious situation.
All right.
So the old school way was, hey, you get into a sleeping bag and both of you strip down your skivvies and get into the sleeping bag, because skin on skin contact is obviously, you're going to transfer that thermal energy or that heat faster to the other person. Now obviously, that may not be applicable, or that may not be suitable for some of the situations we have. Because maybe you're a guy and it's a girl that is gone hypothermic, and saying that you're going to strip down your skivvies and jump into a sleeping bag really isn't reasonable, and nobody's And so, but one of those things that you can do is you can bare some of the skin and get as much skin-on-skin contact as you can within reason. And that's where one of those things that you want to do is you go based off of feeling. So remember, the layers that you have on are keeping you warm because it's keeping the cold out and the heat in. So simply opening up your jacket and then bringing somebody into your jacket to help warm them up is definitely something that will work really well. We all do that all the time with our kids. We go out and we're taking them out to the car, and we're like, hey, I don't want my little boy to get cold, so I open up my jacket and I wrap him inside my jacket. So now so what I'm doing is I'm essentially adding another layer of my insulation so that I can use my body heat to keep them warm. So yes, the skin on skin is fantastic, but however we have to live in a society of, hey, let's be reasonable, and so it's, hey, open up that jacket and wrap that person in the jacket. So now you're not losing the heat that you've built up inside that jacket already as well from your own body temperature.
Yeah, and absolutely, what stage do you actually grab somebody and put them in a sleeping bag?
To get warm and warmed up, so, and that's with the clothing in between the hottest one. The main thing is if they're wet, get them off.
Well, yeah, absolutely. You've got to be cognizant of the situation. Thanks for your call. We definitely have to be smart about the situation. If someone's wet and they're freezing,
Absolutely,
get them stripped and get them into something dry.
Got to get those wet clothes off.
And get them protected. We got another caller. Hopefully it's on the same topic. Hey, thanks for calling K-Talk. What's your name?
Zane.
Frank?
Zane.
I can barely hear you.
It's Zane, letter
Zane.
There we go, Zane. We got you now. Hey, Zane, what's your comment?
Well, the gentleman has talked about how it's not prudent to sit down and save a woman's life. I mean, is that gentleman serious about that? I mean, is politically correctness even slipping into our medical, the ability to save someone's life today? I took offense to that, basically, is what I'm trying to say. That it's not prudent to save a woman's life because you can consider some kind of pervert because you're doing something that would literally save her life. I don't understand. I just hoping that maybe you can clarify.
Sure, absolutely, I can clarify that. What I'm saying is, based off of the old school thing was, hey, strip them down and get into a sleeping bag with them. And I guess, and you bring up a great point, and so let me clarify myself. I mean, how many of us are walking around with sleeping bags? So that's not really, so saying that as a catch-all isn't necessarily the answer. What I'm saying is, hey, let's open up our jackets. They have now, outside of them being wet, if they're soaking wet, we've now entered a different game where you've got to get those wet clothes off of that person. But if
I understand that, but you said it wasn't prudent to strip down your skin to hop into a sleeping bag with a woman. And I'm wondering why, if you think, if saving a woman's life is perverted in any way.
Oh no, let me switch on that. I think it wasn't that it was a woman. It was just it's not always prudent to jump in a sleeping bag with someone else. Purely for the fact that it's a very litigious society that we live in. More importantly, though, we do need to take that effort to help save somebody, no matter what. I don't care who they are, where they're from. Always take that time.
To not help somebody, right?
Well, you always help somebody. The rule is always help. Whatever you can do to help. But
against the law not to help.
Right. The rule is help.
It's don't go to the nth degree immediately. Is essentially
right. It may not be absolutely necessary to strip down to almost naked. Whereas if you have a thin layer of polypropylene on, you have your base layer on. It's not necessary to take that off. You're just still going to transfer a lot of heat. I think that's all that Jeff's saying.
Yeah, just be aware of the situation. Don't go to the extreme if you don't need to. Go to the point of rescue and take care of that person. I think you're right on in saying that. Yeah, Jeff's comments were definitely not geared to block anybody out or not, or to say it's not okay to take care of somebody.
We're not trying to be politically correct.
Yeah, we don't care about political correctness here. We care about making sure you're doing the right thing for other people and making sure you're doing the right thing for yourself. We are out of time. Thanks for listening in. Thanks for those calls. Hey guys, make sure you're prepared, make sure you've got your gear, and you've got a plan.
Thanks, Jeff, for coming again.
Hey, thanks for having me.